One thing for me, I hope you're ashamed of yourself. You should be. It's 70 degrees out. You have bunny hoops on.
This is going to be a breakdown video of the arraignment. And as you can see, when I enhanced the audio where you could hear the judge and the prosecutors a lot more clearly, there are some things that people were really concerned about, especially with how the judge handled things and what the prosecutors were bringing up and how they were getting that information. Now let's go ahead and start off the trial here, and I'm going to stop this at various parts and interject with what is going on and what my speculation is on that situation.
Good morning, Your Honor. Nicholas Sonner on behalf of Mr. James Baker, who's present.
What is counsel? Does the record reflect that this morning, are you aware that there are new charges?
I'm not, Your Honor.
Okay. There are new criminal charges, carrying a concealed weapon, assaulting, resisting. This is Mr. Baker.
This is Mr. Baker.
The city attorney is moving to dismiss the misdemeanors that were issued in this case, and a complaint warrant for various felony and misdemeanor charges were issued this morning by the Wayne County prosecutor and myself. One of the charges is carrying a concealed weapon. One is assaulting, resisting, obstructing a police officer. One is disturbing the peace, and one is a weapons violation, brandishing in public. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Okay. Sir, state your name for the record, please.
James Baker.
Good morning, Mr. Baker.
Good morning.
You are charged with the following offenses: carrying a concealed weapon, assaulting, resisting, obstructing a police officer. You are charged with carrying a concealed weapon. You are charged with disturbing the peace, and you are charged with brandishing a firearm in public. Do you understand those charges?
I understand, Your Honor.
Okay. The first.
Now, what I find interesting is the fact that they changed out charges right at the beginning of the arraignment. This is allowed for the most part because the arraignment is just literally formalizing what charges are bringing forward. And they dropped a couple of charges on the prosecution side and brought up 2 felony charges. Now, what is interesting is the fact that they didn't get any of this information, which you'll hear a little bit later on in the video, about these new charges that he brought up. Now, let's go ahead and continue on.
Charge alleges that on February 5th, 2017, you did carry a dangerous weapon to a handgun, whether concealed or otherwise, in a vehicle operated or occupied by said defendant to a 2002 Mercury, contrary to MCL 750227. That is a felony with a maximum possible penalty of 5 years in prison and or a $2,500 fine, mandatory forfeiture of the weapon or device. Do you understand that?
Now, for those of you who did not hear that clearly, what the judge is saying is they're being charged with in violation of concealed weapons carrying penalty. And this is section 750.227. Number 2. A person shall not carry a pistol concealed on or about his or her person, or whether concealed or otherwise, in a vehicle operated or occupied by a person, except in his or her dwelling house, place of business, or on other land possessed by the person without a license to carry the pistol as provided by law, and if licensed, shall not carry the pistol in a place or manner consistent with any restrictions upon such license. Now, the interesting part is they cite that this is dealing with specifically with the vehicle. And so, I know there was weapons in the vehicle when they went into the police station, and I'm sort of curious as to what is specifically the violation. Unfortunately, there is no details about this specific aspect of the case, and so there's too many things to speculate on. And it's best to just sort of ponder on this until more information comes forward on this. But the thing is this is a big charge right here because it's got a maximum penalty of 5 years in jail or a fine of no more than $2,500. So let's go ahead and continue on listening on to all these charges.
I understand, Your Honor.
You are also charged with disturbing the peace on 2/5/2017 in the city of Dearborn, 5951 Mercury, 14767 Prospect, Dearborn, Michigan. They allege that you did make or excite a disturbance in a public building located at the Dearborn Police Department contrary to MCL 750.170. That is a misdemeanor carrying a maximum possible penalty of 90 days in jail and or a $500 fine. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, this disturbing the peace law is a general go-to-get-ya kind of thing because they often have very vague and broad definitions that can apply to many situations, and you can tell when you go ahead and look at the actual law right here that it does have a very vague and broad measure that it could be used for. And I can see this going to be a very big issue with this, but it could easily fall apart with the later charges of dealing with brandishing the firearm and a few other, and the other parts of this case.
You're also charged with weapons, firearm brandishing in public. They allege on the same date, time, and place you did knowingly brandish a firearm in public contrary to NCL 750.234E. That is a 90-day misdemeanor and or a $100 fine, mandatory forfeiture of the weapon or device. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, this next charge, brandishing, it's quite the interesting one because this one has the potential also to sort of be landed because the way it is defined. Now, the issue is the definition here. And brandish, underneath 750.222, which is definition C, brandish means to point, wave about, or display in a threatening manner with intent to induce fear in another person. Now, the thing is, they could possibly get him on the display in a threatening manner part due to the fact that it was slung across his chest on the forward part. Now, it doesn't look like, at least from the footage that I have seen, that he had any hands on it, but as is, there is no good reliable footage from that angle because you can't clearly see the hands in the entirety of the firearm. It's all going to come down to on what the police see and what does like the security cameras footage shows, and possibly the body camera footage if those were active when that time those officers walked in. And I don't have too much faith in the body camera footage being active when the officers were still standing in the lobby when this all happened because it happened fairly quick. So let's go ahead and continue on with this.
Upon conviction of a felony or attempted felony, the court shall order law enforcement to collect DNA identification profiling samples. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sir, you have the right to remain silent. Anything that you say orally or in writing can be used against you in court. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
You have a right to have an attorney present during any questioning that you consent to. Do you
Yes, Your
understand
Honor.
that? If you cannot hire your own lawyer, the court would appoint one on your behalf. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
I will enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf because of the felony, and you have a right to have a probable cause conference no less than 5 days or more than 14 days from today's date, which is the arraignment. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you have a right.
Now, I've seen a lot of people get upset because the judge automatically gave him a not guilty plea to these charges. And the thing is, this isn't entirely uncommon. This kind of thing does happen a lot more often than you think, and there's a good reason for it. There are times when the defendant is not willing to put in a plea, And the judge wants to make sure that the defendant has the best opportunity to defend themselves. They have that obligation. And it's also well known that these guys are planning to fight these charges for the most part. So I don't really see anything wrong with the judge automatically putting in a not guilty plea. Especially since the defendant at any time past that point has the option to plead no contest or guilty further on down the line as the trial approaches and when the trial is actually happening.
To have a preliminary examination no less than 5 days or more than 7 days from the date of the probable cause hearing. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
The probable cause conference will be set for 3/10/17 at 9 o'clock in courtroom number 1. The preliminary examination will be set for 3/10/17 at 9 o'clock. 3/17/2017 at 9 o'clock in number 1. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now we need to deal with the issue of bond. Detective here.
Yes, Your Honor.
What would you have to say, the prosecutor? Are you going to address
Cal Nugent, on behalf of the people, Your Honor, Sergeant Carpenter will address the court with regard to bond.
Thank you. Sergeant Carpenter.
Your Honor, regarding bond, I'd like the court to consider the fact that the local procedure we're dropping over these are felony cases with enhanced sentencing, which include years in prison. Based upon our investigation in the last several weeks, we've been analyzing cellular communication, data and video from GoPro systems, SD cards, laptops. It's still ongoing, however.
Now, this may be a shock to quite a few of you, but not me. The fact is, they are going through all of his electronics, cell phones, computers, laptops. They most likely got a warrant and took all that stuff from their place of residence, brought it in, and they're going through it all. And guess what? It's very easy to just pull that hard drive or pull that memory card out of whatever device, plug it into another computer, and pull it all. And then start looking through it. And they start digging through it. They're going to know your darkest and worst secrets ever. Just keep that in your mind. Of course, you can make it a lot more difficult by encrypting those devices, in which case then it comes down to getting an official warrant and then getting the keys and all that stuff. So that's an entirely different situation and something I want to cover on a different video.
There are some concerns that the court needs to be aware of that have taken place in the last couple of weeks regarding bond. Since Mr. Baker, Mr. Reeland posted bond, I think it was on February 6th, we've been monitoring Facebook activity. There's been further discussion that even out on bond on the local misdemeanor cases, Your Honor, they have discussed organizing 10 to 15 more armed individuals with AR-15s and open carrying in police departments. Obviously, that creates a concern not only for police officers but for the public welfare. In addition, Your Honor,
now, if you weren't really paying attention, you really should. In fact, you should probably rewind and re-listen to all that. What they are doing is they're tapping all of his communications. They're tapping his Facebook, his cell phone conversations, his text messages. If there's some sort of social media page he's communicating from, guess what? They're pulling all of his comments and the comments of whoever he's talking with, and they're going to know exactly what's going on. In fact, it should become standard protocol that if you are communicating with people on social media, that you should speak very little after an arrest, if you get out of jail. In fact, it should be doubly so that you disconnect yourself from your Facebook groups where you're talking with other activists on sensitive communication ideas and all that stuff, which you can hear that they're starting to go off about here, where they're going, they're looking about getting people together to do some more protests and stuff like that and open carry walks. And all of a sudden they're scared about that, and they're also at the same time using that as a weapon against these individuals in arraignment. And it's going to be a possible thing that these things can come back up during trial itself and be used as a weapon. Hence why it's a good idea to stop using these methods and only communicate the vital information that is needed if you continue using these platforms to at least have some sort of communication going in and out. As part of a Facebook group that I do use to communicate with people, the standard protocol is if an activist gets arrested in a serious situation like this, it is to cut ties so this way we are disassociated. It sucks, it's loneliness on their part, but we still communicate through other means and only vital information that is needed between the group or the individuals themselves with that person. You do not want to say more than is needed because these kinds of things lead into major problems because they're going to continue to monitor. And if they pick up on something that sounds suspicious enough that they can get a warrant, they're going to go get a warrant and tap everybody else's communications too on top of that under possible suspicion of further terrorism or whatever thing they can come up with. Oh, they might be potentially creating a crime or a harmful incident, so we need to pull a warrant so we can listen in on these people's communications. Don't give them that extra ammo to start hounding your friends and your family and all that stuff. Be smart about this. And it's definitely what you want to listen to in this next part. That is going to be somewhat of a concern.
In analyzing over 7,000 text messages from Mr. Leland's phone, with 100 of those texts being communicated between him and Baker where they are planning their activities, this goes beyond exercising some type of Second Amendment right to the behavior and activity that now is more criminal in nature.
See, he just sat there and took talks about doing open carry protests and stuff like that and spinned it where it's more criminal in nature. See, this is also a war of words. This is why court battles are very ugly. And this is why you want to give them as very little ammunition to use against you in these kinds of situations.
And we believe that these texts do indicate that. There's discussion in, I quote, in debating the police into perceived unlawful or inappropriate conduct. There's discussion about having a death wish, making funeral arrangements, and embracing the idea of being known as the public enemy. They appear to be in competition with other activists regarding their conduct and try to push the envelope every time to provoke the police further and further as an organized group that are in my opinion, professional provocateurs.
That's a word I haven't heard in a long time. From the government. Professional provocateurs. Exercising your rights, following the law for the most part, makes you a professional provocateur. Especially when you sit there and you make videos about it and you upload it to YouTube. They're going to take every single piece of dirt that they can think of and spin it to make it look even nastier. That is what these guys are up against. Because they sat there and talked about it and worded things in a certain way, they're going to now take that, blow it up, take things out of context, and use it against them. And this is what they're going to be fighting in the eyes of a jury. They're also dealing with this in the court of public of opinion. You got to be smart about this kind of stuff. And I know I've said stuff, I put in text messages that are going to be, text messages, comments in the past, that if I end up in a situation like these guys, are going to be used against me in the same manner. I expect it, I understand it fully. And I'm actually prepared for that mentally. And it's going to suck if this kind of a court case happens against me. And this is a warning to any other activists that is involved in this, or is anybody that's looking to get involved in this. This is the kind of thing that you have to keep in mind. Because they're going to take everything, any speck of dirt that they can use legally, and they're going to throw it at you in court. This lawyer that is going to be representing these two guys is going to have a lot of work cut out for him. on doing damage control just with all the stuff that they're digging up through communications. And the question is, how legal was the warrant and all that stuff? Chances are he's not going to be able to get too much thrown out. But, as I said, be smart about this if you get involved.
The police into almost engaging in deadly force scenarios, Your Honor. In addition, there's been text messages that are more aggressive in nature discussing carrying bazookas, laws rockets, which are handheld type rockets, mortar tubes during their demonstrations, and strapping deactivated grenades onto their bulletproof vests, Your Honor.
Now, this is one area where they sort of screwed up at. The issue is the defense says none of this is unlawful. But that's not entirely true. And I actually did some research because I'm sort of aware of these kinds of laws in the first place. And that is having something that can be misconstrued as a bomb. In fact, it's part of the explosives and bombs and harmful devices part of the legislation. Specifically, you're looking at 750.204A. A person who, with the intent to terrorize, frighten, intimidate, threaten, harass, or annoy any other person, possess, deliver, send, transports, or place a device that is constructed to represent an explosive, incendiary device, or a bomb, or that can be representative of explosive, incendiary device, or bomb, is guilty of a felony punishable by an imprisonment of not more than 5 years or a fine of not more than $3,000 or both. Granted, they are just talking about it. Unfortunately, this is the gotcha that allows us to say this is more possible criminal acts, where the prosecution managed to squeak by barely by the skin of their teeth with that wording. And it sucks, but the law is right there, clear as day. And I'm not sure if that would apply to empty mortar tubes or empty AT-4 rockets that don't, rocket tubes that don't have anything in them, but I could definitely see it being applied to deactivated grenades or Fox grenades or anything that can be construed as just a bomb in general that can explode. So that is where they have that sort of little gotcha. And this is what you gotta keep in mind. This is why you go and do your research on the laws and stuff like that. This is why I spend a lot of time with my nose in the legal books on my spare time when I'm looking at filming or trying to do a new aspect on exercising my rights. For filming, I've been researching stuff on doing Second Amendment carry, and that's a huge mess, a can of worms in itself. And one of the reasons why I haven't done open carry for the most part, because there is a lot of stuff that can hang you up. So let's continue on.
In regards to the public welfare, that's a concern of ours, of course, but they also are making apparent attempts in their planning to conceal their identity during criminal behavior, which discusses wearing masks, obviously with the nature of this case, but also changing from bright-colored clothing into dark-colored clothing after the demonstrations to avoid apprehension or identification by officers on surveillance. They've also discussed taking advantage of Trumpophobia and wearing full Muslim robes or headgear, or in their words, turbans, and carrying AK-47s during their demonstrations. There's been discussion of carrying openly while black and painting their faces black to conceal their identity and walking around residential neighborhoods with hoods pulled up to incite fear in the public and provoke the police.
Yeah, changing of clothes is not illegal. Changing them in clothes to change your look is not illegal. And dodging cops following you because you're exercising your rights legally is not illegal. Furthermore, wearing of Islamic wear in order to take full effect of Trumpophobia. Boy. You know, I can easily see this being used against, I don't know, maybe myself when I was thinking of possibly doing open carry down in Texas. Or possibly doing open carry up here in Alaska, which is quite interesting. What's funny is also every now and then I get the false accusation of culture appropriation, but that's a very rare thing in this. But the other part is, they want to paint their faces black. I'm sorry, but maybe they want to test this angle out of exercising their civil rights, looking like a minority. Something I've been hemming and hawing and wanting to do for several years. Because, unfortunately, there isn't that many people involved in this kind of civil rights exercise and documenting it. And there's not that many people that are minorities that are involved in it also. If you look, unfortunately, most of them are Caucasian. There is very few black, Latino American and Asians. I don't even know if there is any Asians that are involved in this kind of civil rights exercise. Still, I would love to see these civil rights exercises being exercised a lot more spread out, where you have a more diverse community that's involved in it. But in situations where there's only like 1 or 2 people in an area, and unfortunately they're both Caucasian, and you want to test to make sure, hey, if there's a minority that shows up and does this filming of a police station or does open carry, are their rights going to be equally represented as my rights as a white person? There is nothing wrong with that in my eyes. Because we're trying to make sure that everyone's rights are represented equally. And the fact that they're trying to use this as an accusation of hiding their identity, that's not entirely true. There is other reasons why we're doing this. And that is to make sure that those other groups that we possibly dress as or make ourselves look like are equally represented.
There are also discussion which places law enforcement officers in jeopardy by videotaping undercover operatives leaving Oakland County Net and the DEA buildings, which would obviously place them in jeopardy if other individuals involved in criminal activity were able to identify these officers that were in undercover capacity. There's been...
Not illegal in the slightest bit. If anything, it's a failure on your officers and your policies to conceal their identities. Not on ours. If they're out in public, they can be filmed. There are ways where you can get them in and out of your buildings without them being easily identifiable. There are methods for doing that. I've seen you guys use them in the past. I've seen law enforcement do this many times. Especially when you have informants. The thing is, that is on you guys, not on the general public. Even more so, if there's a gas station or some sort of convenience store across the street with a camera that's pointed right at that front area, it's not the fault of the store owner if your guys' faces get exposed or something like that because he had some interesting footage that showed up on a security camera and he uploaded it, and it just so happens one of your officers or undercover agents comes out at the same time. That is on you guys, your policies, training, and whatever else that dictates on how you handle sensitive personnel that shouldn't be seen in public or around your building if they're going to be working in undercover situations.
Discussion of causing shitstorms, and if I may, I won't swear, but FS up, making vulnerable meek approaches only to hulk up, quote unquote, to test law enforcement.
Now, I'm not exactly sure what he's insinuating with the hulk up part, but I'm guessing possibly these guys were talking about maybe getting buff and getting in shape to look like that they are not an easy person to push over. And that's my best guess with this one for the most part. But as is there's nothing wrong with looking strong and acting alpha to show that you're not going to bend over and allow your rights to be violated when approached by an overly aggressive officer.
Enforcement. And finally, they've identified even more locations for their demonstrations and activities, which include, but are not limited to, an MSP post in Taylor, the FBI building in Detroit, Lapeer Prison, the DEA building in Detroit, Calhoun County Jail, Kalamazoo County Jail, Van Buren County Jail, Allegan County Jail, Ottawa County Jail, Muskegon County, Oakland County Narcotics Enforcement Team, power plants, post offices, substations, oil refineries, and of course the city of Dearborn. And I would ask that based upon this information.
Hey, thanks for the list. Maybe I should take a trip down there and go film all of those. Yeah, but see, this is why I emphasize that you watch how you communicate various things, especially if they might be listening in, because guess what? If you're planning a surprise trip to go and film these locations, well, now they know about it. But if you notice how they got even more and more vague at the end, it's like, oh, post offices, power plants, and stuff like that, substations, it's like, yeah, that's generally the kind of things we go and test for filming, at least. And what's even funnier is, like, guess what? If the guy's open carrying, are they really a terrorist? Would a terrorist or someone that's really wanting to cause harm go out there, do an open carry and filming these things, because it's obviously going to bring attention down on them? I find it quite overly dramatic on this kind of aspect. But this is why I emphasize that you should not communicate important stuff over the phone if you're in a shitstorm like this trial. Because guess what? They're going to tap all of your communications. And for all those friends that were communicating this kind of stuff with them, guess what? There's pretty good odds that your phones are now being tapped. And your text messages are being intercepted. And your social media is being requested from the servers by the police and law enforcement so they can be studied to see if, oh, maybe we should keep a closer eye on these guys, or maybe, oh, that actually might be a crime we can charge you with. Just keep that in mind.
The court issues a substantial bond, which would to include turning over any and all firearms contained within the residences. We are aware that Mr. Baker has at least 9 handguns registered in his name. And also, based upon these activities and their attempts to conceal their identities during demonstrations, we ask that they are both fixed with a GPS tether in the event that they do engage in further activity, that we go to monitor their whereabouts and identify them if it turns criminal, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I'm not too entirely surprised the requirement of GPS tethering. That I sort of expected for the most part with what they're coming at from the prosecution side. And if there's someone that's known to be difficult to track or follow, I would actually expect this kind of requirement to be dealt with. For me, if there was some sort of case where, because I'm known to change and dodge being followed and all that stuff become difficult to track, I would expect myself to end up with a GPS tether kind of situation. On the other hand, with the insanely high amount of bond that they're asking for, I'm very sort of against, because they're quite well known, and I'll actually leave that up to the defense lawyer when he comes up to talk here.
Maybe anything further to add?
Well, based on all that's been said by Sergeant Carpenter, Your Honor, we are asking for a significant high cash bond, Your Honor. Sergeant Carpenter has a specific recommendation with regard to bond.
Under, I believe, $30,000 cash bond surety is prudent in this matter.
Thank you. Mr. DiBiase, do you have anything to say?
Your Honor, just a matter of housekeeping for the people of the city of Dearborn, as the court has indicated. People will move to dismiss the local charges. I believe it was for refused booking and breach of peace, consistent with Mr. Baker's arraignment just now on the felony charges, the state charges.
Pursuant to the prosecutor's motion, case number 17C22345OM will be dismissed. Further case number 17C22344OM will be dismissed.
And that last file, Judge, was the state file that you referred to. There's a state misdemeanor charge.
Yes.
The state misdemeanor charge that the people would also move to dismiss without prejudice based on the new felony charges.
Okay. Case number 17S3532, pursuant to the prosecutor's motion, will be dismissed without prejudice. Okay, so that takes care of that. Counsel, would you like to address the issue of bond?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. As you know, the two prongs of bond are they a flight risk? They've hired counsel. They are well-known political activists on the internet. They have hundreds of videos, 4 million views, thousands of subscribers. They plan on fighting this case all the way through. As far as danger to the community, they are not. They are a well-known activist. Everything that has been described has been legal.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Lawyer, but unfortunately, that one issue with the carrying of possible grenades, well, dummy grenades or decommissioned grenades on the vest is not legal. But otherwise, the rest of it, yeah, that is legal, so continue on.
Completely legal. They are allowed to open carry in Michigan. I know people might have problems with that, but it doesn't matter. They have no violent history whatsoever. Out of all the demonstrations they've done, there's not been any sort of person hurt or any sort of confrontation until this Dearborn incident that happened. There's no reason to hold them at a $30,000 cash bonding. This is a political witch hunt, it seems like. You see the force brought here against my clients. We're going to ask for personal bond. They're not a danger at all. There's not one single fact to say that they're a danger.
Counsel, do you agree with me that the Second Amendment is not an absolute guarantee for open carry, and that the open carry law is in a state of flux right now based on the case of Heller versus the District of Columbia?
All right. I really have to interject on this part because the judge is plainly wrong on this case. Page 54 of the Heller, Washington, D.C. v. Heller case. Although we do not undertake an exhaustive historical analysis today of full scope of the Second Amendment, nothing, in our opinion, should be taken to cast doubt on long-standing prohibitions on all the possessions of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, or law forbidding the carrying of firearms in sensitive places such as schools and government buildings, or law imposing conditions and qualifications on the commercial sale of arms. Citation 26. Citation reads, "We identify these presumptively lawful regulatory measures only as examples. Our list does not purport to be exhaustive." Nowhere have I seen within this does this affect any of the laws that deal with the open carrying of firearms. I'm not sure where the judge pulled this one out of his ass. And let's go ahead and sort of finish up this little exchange here before I jump in a little bit more.
Respectfully, Your Honor, there is no open carry law.
There's no open carry law in the state of Michigan, so what you're relying on is the Second Amendment for the open carry, is that correct?
There's no law prohibiting it, so you're allowed to do it.
Under the Second Amendment?
Second Amendment says the government can write laws prohibiting the Second Amendment. There is no law prohibiting open carry, is what I'm saying, Your Honor.
But you'll agree with me that that's not absolute.
I agree that that's what the court is deciding.
The lawyer is very smart with the way he ended that. But you know what? Guess what? It's not just the Second Amendment. It's written into the Michigan Constitution. Number 6, bearing of arms. Underneath Article 1, Declaration of Rights, Section 6. Every person has a right to keep and bear arms for defense of himself and the state. It's just not the Second Amendment. It's also the 6th article, the 6th section in your Article 1 of the state constitution. You have something in there. And on top of that, it is not in the law that it is illegal to carry a firearm into a police station as a non-police officer. I've already established this beforehand, that it's not illegal. It's not on the list of prohibited locations to carry a firearm under state statutes. Nor is it covered underneath the federal statutes for a state-ran police station. It is for certain federal installations and federal buildings, that is for sure. But it's not in the federal laws, it's not in the state laws. And if there was some local ordinance, I'm pretty sure they would have popped that in there real fast. Now, it's obvious that there's a shortfall within state legislation that could be easily fixed within the next legislative session, you could say, to add in police stations. In fact, I'm surprised that it wasn't on there in the first place. But when I went and looked it up myself, I was like, sure enough, you can carry a firearm into a police station in Michigan. And there's a reason why I go and read all this stuff. It's exhausting. Especially when you gotta dig through it and pick it apart and go, okay, is there anything else on this? Is there any case law? And I haven't even dug into case law from Michigan on these kinds of subjects. I don't have the time. I sure wish I was a lawyer getting paid to do this stuff, but I don't have a law degree. I'm not certified by the bar or anything. I do this on my own free time when I have the opportunity to research all this stuff. And the sad fact is, I'm knowing more than the judge here when it comes to the Heller case.
There are a number of things that I need to consider when I am considering bond. One of the things is the prior record. I've heard nothing about that. One of the things is whether or not Mr. Baker will appear. I've heard nothing about that. Substance abuse history, heard nothing about that. One of the things that is a factor that needs to be decided in considering bond is the risk or danger to the public. Under the circumstances, with the information that has been given to me by the detective, with the fact that your client, Mr. Baker, walked into the police station with body gear, with a ski mask on, and with what appeared to be an assault rifle slung over his chest, I believe that he caused, those are the allegations, and there is YouTube video of it, that he caused serious danger to both the police department, the community, and the civilians who work in that in that police station. I find that this is a very serious situation. I find that based on that and based on the risk to the public, that I am going to order a $50,000 cash or surety bond. I'm going to order that he turn over all his weapons to the Dearborn Police Department. I'm going to order that if he posts bond, he gets a GPS tether. And I'm also going to order that he have no contact with Mr. Brandon Beelan.
And the judge is right on one thing. The fact that public safety has to be accounted for when you're dealing with bond situations. And the fact is that there was a potential for a shootout, you could sort of say, to happen where bullets would have been flying everywhere, is what he's considering in that factor when he's deciding the bond. Though it shouldn't be an issue if he has no firearms and he's not able to talk with his buddy there. I don't really see how this is a major factor on them being a hazard to the general public, and that's one of the things I disagree with. After all that, they are now disarmed. They're not a threat because you've taken away the potential tools of creating that kind of a situation for the most part. And I do agree on one aspect that the potential for something bad to go down because of the balaclava or face mask that was around his face there, and having the weapon slung over the chest area actually brings up the huge issue of, okay, does that fall underneath brandishing or not? So the potential for something to go out of whack was extremely high in that situation. But as is, it really comes down to the end of the day, are they truly a threat to the general public after you take the firearms and institute GPS collaring and all that stuff? And in my opinion, no. They're not going to be a threat to the general public.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This way, sir. Thank you, Your Honor. Nicholas Nari on behalf of Mr. Brandon Breland, who's present.
Counsel, have you had discussions with your clients regarding possible conflict of interest in this matter?
I have, Your Honor.
Okay. And sir, has you had that conversation with you?
Yes.
And do you believe that there may be a conflict of interest with counsel representing both you and Mr. Baker?
Not at this moment.
Okay. Should you decide at some point in time that there may be a conflict of interest in that representation, please bring that to the court's attention and we'll deal with that matter.
Okay.
Okay. Sir, your name is Brandon Breland, is that correct?
Yes.
And you are charged with the following felony offenses. One is carrying a concealed weapon. One is assaulting, resisting, or obstructing a police officer. One is disturbing the peace. Do you understand that?
Yes.
It's alleged that on February 5th, 2017, you did carry a dangerous weapon, whether a handgun, whether concealed or otherwise, in a vehicle operated or occupied by said defendant to a 2002 Mercury, contrary to MCL 750.227. That is a felony with a maximum possible penalty of 5 years in prison or a $2,500 fine, mandatory forfeiture of the weapon or device. Do you understand that?
Yes.
So it's also alleged that you did assault, batter, wound, resist, or obstruct, or oppose, or endanger Corporal Clive, a police officer of Dearborn, that the defendant knew or had reason to know was performing his or her duties contrary to MCL 750.81B1. That too happened on 2/5/17 in the city of Dearborn at the police department. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Now, what I find about this interesting charge here is the fact that how many words they use that could be used. Let's see. Who assaults, batters, wounds, resists, obstructs, opposes, or endangers a person or individual who he knows who is an officer that's conducting their thing. And that's going to be an interesting charge. That is 750.81D1. And pretty much that's, I mean, they got the oppose part possibly because they refused to surrender right then and there when the cops were freaking out when they walked into the lobby. And also the endangers a person. Those are going to be the two key points within that law that's going to be argued over this specific issue within the court. And it's going to be really hard how this one's going to be played out too, because it's going to sort of fall further on the brandishing aspect. Because I think that's the brandishing part of this case is going to be the linchpin that could possibly make this case fall apart on the prosecution if it can be argued properly and, deconstructed and torn apart. It just gets shredded. Now, could it be done? It's possible. I'm not sure, though. That's going to be the big, huge issue, and I'm not sure how this is going to play out. This is something we're going to definitely have to keep an eye on for sure.
that is a felony carrying a maximum possible penalty of 2 years in prison and or $2,000 fine. Consecutive sentence may be imposed under MCL 750.506A if the assault was committed in a place of confinement, or under MCL 750.81B6 for another violation arising out of the same transaction. Do you understand that?
Yes.
It's also alleged, sir, that you did disturb the peace. You did make or excite a disturbance in a public building located at Dearborn Police Department, contrary to MCL 750.170. That is a misdemeanor carrying a maximum possible penalty of 90 days in jail and or $500 fine. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Sir, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say will be used against you in the court of law. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You have a right to have a lawyer represent you during any questioning consented to. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You have an attorney now, but if you didn't have the money to hire an attorney, the court would appoint an attorney for you. Do you understand that?
Yes.
I will enter a not guilty plea on your behalf as one of these charges. 2 of these charges are felonies. You have the right to have a probable cause conference no less than 5 days or more than 14 days from the date of the arraignment, which is today. You have the right to have a preliminary examination no less than 5 days or more than 7 days after the probable cause conference. I will schedule a probable cause conference for March 10th, 2017 at 9 o'clock, courtroom number 1. I will schedule a preliminary examination for March 17th, 2017 at 9 o'clock a.m. in courtroom number 1. Detective Judge addressed bond in this matter as well.
Yes, Your Honor, just to avoid redundancy, I'd like to express the Department's desire to reaffirm the same information provided from Mr. Baker and relay that to Mr. Freeland regarding the bond. They have the same amount and the same conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Now, as you notice, he was the one that was only carrying the camera. And they're asking for the same amount of bond as the other guy got. That seems a little extreme right there.
I agree with Sergeant Carpenter, Your Honor. We asked for a similar bond as to the last case.
Okay. And Mr. DiBiase, you're here to move to dismiss the misdemeanor cases?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, based on the city attorney's motion to dismiss case number 17C22339, that case will be dismissed. Case number 17C22340, that case will be dismissed. Case number 17C22341, that case will be dismissed as well. Bond will be returned on those cases. Counsel, would you like to make an argument regarding bond?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Freeland will be coming back to court to face these charges. There's no substance abuse history, no history of violence. In this matter, he was carrying a camera into the police station. You said your reasons for the high bond last time was because of entering with a firearm. He only had a camera. And again, he's a political activist, and this is what these guys do, it's what these guys believe in. Nothing they had done in the past, out of dozens and dozens, probably approaching 100 times, has been illegal. They've never been arrested in regards to political activism, and we are going to ask for personal bond. They're not a danger to the community. Mr. Freeland is not a danger at all.
The situation in my mind with Mr. Freeland, and most certainly he's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The conduct of Mr. Freeland that's been alleged is lesser than Mr. Baker. Mr. Freeland did not have a weapon when he walked into the police department. However, I do think that the matter is a very serious matter, and that he was involved in it to a great extent, although he did not have a weapon at the police department. I still believe that this kind of conduct is a danger to both the police department, the public, and the civilian workers that are in the police department. Mr. Freeland's bond will be $20,000 cash or surety. He's to turn in all of his weapons. is released, will be on a GPS tether. Seems to have no contact with Mr. James Baker. Any further?
Nothing further.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. This way.
Now, I hope these guys can beat these charges. And I recognize that it was a very stupid idea to go in the way they did. But I do also recognize that they have the legal right to open carry into the police station because there is no law against it. Now, the method and manner they did it in, that's really going to come up to a jury to decide upon. And it's going to be something that we're going to have to wait and see. We need to learn from the mistakes of others. I've made mistakes, and I hope people learn from my mistakes. I know other people have made mistakes, and I try to learn from their mistakes. But it's really dependent on ourselves to self-improve and to better fight these battles as time goes on. Because as we can see in this arraignment, that they will do everything they can to tear you down. And so we need to do everything we can to build ourselves up and to improve upon ourselves and to learn from each other and to help each other out when we do those make the mistakes on those issues. So don't just condemn them because they did something stupid. Recognize that they did something stupid and try to help them build themselves back up. That's going to be the big issue here. At least from us fellow civil rights activists that are out there. So, as is, people know I have problems with other activists out there and the way they do things. But that doesn't stop me from going out there and supporting them. And I hope that maybe some of the things I pointed out in this video, if they see it, that they can say, hey, that's some good information, and take it with them and take it to their attorney and find a way to beat this rap. And hopefully they don't make similar mistakes in the future. And hopefully they can, as this gets over with, they'll be able to get back out there and do some open carry stuff. Because I do love the fact that they get out there and do the open carry. They get the groups together and all that. And they do, the open carry walks and all that. I love that aspect. I want to see more of that. I want to see that really get emphasized. Get people to go out there and exercise their rights filming. Now, as is, yes, I do disagree with them, but not everybody can agree with each other. But I back them on them exercising their rights. And I can't fault them for that part. And I can't think of any better way to end this. Good luck, guys. I hope you can beat the rap. And I'll have some more videos about this as I get more courtroom footage and all that stuff. And I'll probably do further deconstructing of how the trial is carried out if I'm provided with the footage and I have the time to invest in this.